The shuttle doors opened with a soft hiss and stepped onto the metal floor of orbital station Theta 7. The air smelled different here, clean but cold, like a hospital that had never seen a patient. Behind her, 19 other human cadets walked out in neat lines. They wore simple gray uniforms with the Earth symbol on their shoulders. They were the first humans ever allowed into the Galactic Military Academy. Everyone back home called them pioneers, heroes, the hope of humanity. Right now just felt tired. The journey from Earth had taken 3 weeks. 3 weeks of sleeping in small rooms, eating food that tasted like nothing, and listening to briefings about how important this mission was. How they needed to prove that humans deserved a place among the stars. Walked beside her. He was tall, with kind eyes and hands that were always busy with something. Back on Earth, he had been an engineer. He could build anything from scraps and broken parts. Now he looked around the station with wonder in his eyes. "Look at this place," he whispered. "The technology here is at least 200 years ahead of ours." Nodded but said nothing. She was too busy watching. The station was massive. The ceiling rose so high that she could barely see the lights at the top. Aliens of every shape and size walked past them. Some had scales, some had fur. Some had no faces at all, just smooth surfaces with glowing spots where eyes should be. None of them looked at the humans, or if they did, they looked away quickly, like the humans were not worth their time. A voice called out from ahead, "Human delegation, form up." The speaker was Commander. He was human, one of the few already working at the Academy. He had been here for 5 years, serving as a bridge between Earth and the galactic community. His face was hard but could see something else beneath it. Worry, maybe, or hope. It was hard to tell. "Welcome to the Galactic Military Academy," said as they gathered around him. "You are the first. That means everything you do matters, every success, every failure. The galaxy is watching." Who stood on the other side let out a small breath. She was training to be a medic. Her hands were gentle, meant for healing, not fighting. "No pressure," she muttered. Heard her, his eyes softened for just a moment. "I know it's a lot, but I believe in you, all of you. Now follow me. Orientation begins in 1 hour." They walked through long corridors filled with strange sounds and stranger smells, kept her eyes moving. She noted the doors, the corners, the places where shadows gathered. It was a habit she had developed long ago. Her grandmother had taught her, always know your surroundings, always have a way out. The orientation hall was a vast circular room. Seats rose in layers like a stadium, and at the center was a raised platform where instructors would speak. Hundreds of alien cadets already filled the seats. The humans were directed to a small section near the back. Sat down and waited. The instructors entered one by one. Most were species she did not recognize, but one stood out immediately. He was tall, taller than any human, with 4 arms and a body covered in dark green plates. His head was triangular, with large compound eyes that seemed to see everything at once. When he moved, his joints clicked softly. "That's Instructor," whispered, reading from his tablet. "Species. He teaches improvised combat fundamentals. Decorated war hero. Killed over 300 enemies in the conflict." Watch take his place at the front. He stood perfectly still, but his eyes moved constantly, scanning the room. When they passed over the human section, they paused. His mandibles moved in what might have been a smile. It was not a friendly smile. The orientation speeches began. Most were forgettable. "Welcome to the Academy. Work hard. Bring honor to your species." The usual words that leaders said when they wanted to sound important. Then stepped forward. "I see we have new arrivals," he said. His voice was sharp like metal scraping against metal. "The humans. I have studied your species, your history." He paused, letting the silence grow heavy. "You have fought wars, many wars. You killed each other over land, over resources, over ideas." His mandibles clicked with amusement. "You call these conflicts great, historic, defining moments of your civilization. Felt the other humans tense around her. But I have seen real war, continued. I have fought enemies that could tear your greatest warriors apart with a single limb. Your battles are playground scuffles. Your weapons are toys. You are children who have just learned to walk, and now you wish to run with those who have conquered galaxies. Stood up, with respect, instructor human soldiers have. Sit down. The words cut through the air like a blade. Sat. Compound eyes fixed on the human section. You will have a chance to prove yourselves. Tomorrow, my class, Improvised Combat Fundamentals. The clicking smile returned. I expect you to try not to embarrass your species too badly. He turned and walked away. The orientation continued, but no longer listened. She was watching, nodding, calculating. The weight of the stylus in her hand, the distance to the nearest exit, the way's armor plates overlapped, leaving small gaps at the joints. Leaned close. Are you okay? Fine, said quietly. He's trying to intimidate us. Don't let him. Looked at the spot where it stood, where he had smiled that cold, clicking smile. I won't, she said. But she was not thinking about intimidation. She was thinking about tomorrow, about what might be around her when the time came. Her grandmother's voice echoed in her memory. The world is full of weapons, child. You just need eyes to see them. Had those eyes. And tomorrow she would use them. Combat Training Hall 7C was nothing like the classrooms on Earth. The room was a perfect circle, with walls made of some dark metal that absorbed light. The floor was covered in thick mats that could soften falls, or bodies. Arrived early. She wanted to see the room before it filled with others, before the noise and the movement made observation difficult. The center of the room held a raised platform where instructors could demonstrate techniques. Near the platform stood a podium made of the same dark metal as the walls. On it rested several flat tablets, their surfaces glowing with text and diagrams. Lecture notes, she guessed. Physical backups in case the holographic systems failed. Above the podium, thin cables stretched across the ceiling, holding the holographic projectors in place. The cables were tight, pulled to their limit. Good tension, strong material. She noted all of this in the time it took to blink. Other cadets began to filter in. There were 12 different species in this class. There were tall beings made of living crystal, their bodies catching the light in beautiful patterns. There were massive, with thick gray skin and muscles that could crush stone. There were sleek and quick, built for speed rather than strength. And then there were the humans, 20 of them, sitting together in one corner like animals gathered for warmth. Sat beside, took the seat on her other side. Did you sleep last night? Asked quietly. Some said. It was not entirely a lie. She had closed her eyes for a few hours, but her mind had kept working, thinking about words, about the contempt in his compound eyes. He's just one instructor, said. There are others who don't hate us. He doesn't hate us, said. He thinks we're beneath his hate, that's different. Before could respond, the doors at the far end of the hall opened. Instructor walked in, his 4 arms swinging at his sides, his footsteps clicking against the floor. The room fell silent immediately. He moved to the center platform and stood there for a long moment, letting his compound eyes sweep across the assembled cadets. When they reached the human section, they paused, felt the weight of that gaze like a physical pressure. Today, began, his voice filling the hall, we discuss the foundation of all combat, improvisation. The holographic projectors hummed to life. Images appeared in the air around him, showing warriors from different species fighting in various environments. Jungles, deserts, space stations, burning cities. The superior warrior does not rely on manufactured weapons, said. He began to pace, his 4 arms gesturing at the images. Any fool can pull a trigger, any child can swing a blade, but a true warrior can walk into any environment and find 100 ways to kill. He stopped packing and faced the cadets directly. The superior warrior uses what surrounds them. As he spoke, his eyes moved. She looked at the podium, at the tablets resting on its surface. She estimated their weight, their thickness, the material they were made from, probably a composite of metal and glass, sturdy but with stress points along the edges. This requires three things, continued: observation, adaptation, execution. You must see your environment clearly. You must understand how each element can be used, and you must act without hesitation. He paused, looking at the human section again. Of course, this requires cognitive speed that not all species possess. A few of the alien cadets made sounds that might have been laughter. The instructor seemed pleased by this. His eyes moved to the ceiling cables. She followed their path from the projectors to the anchor points on the walls. The tension was maintained by small clamps. If the clamps released, the cables would snap back with significant force. Some species, said, gesturing with two of his arms toward the humans, require tools to compensate for biological deficiencies. They build machines because their bodies are weak. They create weapons because their claws are dull and their teeth are soft. He flexed all four arms, displaying the natural blades that grew from his forearms. Each one was as long as a human's hand, sharp enough to cut through metal. Others are naturally equipped for combat. His jaw tightened, looked down at her hands. The other human cadets shifted uncomfortably in their seats. Remained still. She was looking at the gap between the plates of his armor, right at the joint where his upper arms met his shoulders. The gap was small, maybe 2 centimeters, but it was there. The philosophy is simple, continued, returning to his lecture. Everything is a weapon, this podium, these walls, the air you breathe. A true warrior can turn any environment into an arsenal within seconds. He picked up one of the tablets from the podium and held it up. Even this, a simple data tablet, in the hands of a warrior it becomes a blade, a shield, a projectile. He tossed it lightly and caught it with another hand. In the hands of a lesser being it is just a tablet. He set it back down. Watched where he placed it, right edge of the podium, 17 centimeters from the corner. Now, said, we will have a demonstration. I need a volunteer to show how this principle works in practice. No one moved. His mandibles clicked slowly. His compound eyes swept the room once more, taking their time, enjoying the fear he could smell in the air. Then they stopped on. You, he said, human female, stand. Stood around her, she could feel the other humans tense. Reached out as if to stop her, but she was already walking forward. Since your species claims to be adaptable, said as she approached, let us see if that claim has any truth. Reached the center of the room and stopped. She stood before the instructor, her head barely reaching his chest. His shadow fell over her like a blanket. You will face a Class 2 combat drone, said. It will not cause permanent damage. He paused, probably. A panel in the floor opened. A drone rose from below. It was the size of a dog, with sharp edges and glowing sensors where eyes should be. You have 30 seconds once it engages. You may use anything in this room to defend yourself. Looked at the room, at the podium, at the tablets, at the cables above. May I clarify the rules, she asked. Her voice was calm, quiet. His mandibles clicked with impatience. Use what's around you. Is that concept too complex for your species? Just making sure, she said. Everything around me. Spread all four arms wide. Everything in this room is a potential weapon to a competent warrior. That is the entire point of this lesson. Nodded slowly. Begin, said. He turned back to his podium, reaching for his lecture notes. He intended to continue his speech while she struggled. He wanted to show the class how a human would fail. He never finished turning around. Was already moving. Everything happened in less than 2 seconds. Later, when they reviewed the recording, the Academy computers would measure it exactly, 1.7 seconds from start to finish. But in that moment, time seemed to stretch like rubber, and everyone in the room saw something they would never forget. Did not wait for the drone to activate. She did not wait for it to finish turning. She did not wait for anything. Her hand shot out toward the podium. Her fingers closed around the tablet that had been holding just moments before. The same tablet he had called a weapon in the hands of a true warrior. In her hands, it became exactly that. She brought it down against the edge of the podium. The angle was precise. She had seen the stress lines in the material during the lecture, the tiny imperfections that made one spot weaker than the others. The tablet snapped cleanly in half, leaving two pieces with edges as sharp as broken glass. The sound made turn. His compound eyes widened. His mandibles opened to speak. But was not done. With the same motion, she threw one half of the broken tablet upward. It spun through the air and struck the clamp holding the nearest ceiling cable. The clamp was not designed to take impact. It released. The cable snapped back with a sharp crack, whipping through the air like a metal snake. The drone had just begun to rise, its sensors glowing, its weapons charging. The cable caught it perfectly, wrapping around its sensor array, blinding it. The drone stumbled, its systems confused. It tried to compensate, tried to find its target. Its weapons powered up, searching for something to hit. Was already there. She moved under the struggling machine, her remaining tablet half gripped tight in her fist. She had studied the design of Academy drones during the shuttle ride to the station. Standard models had their motor housing on the underside, protected by a thin cover that could be removed for maintenance. She drove the sharp edge of the broken tablet into that cover. The metal bent, then gave way. Sparks flew. The drone made a sound like a dying animal, a high whine that cut through the silence of the room. Then it crashed to the floor and stopped moving. Stood over it, breathing hard. A small cut on her hand dripped blood onto the dark mat. She had not even felt it happen. The room was absolutely silent. Every cadet, every species, every being in that hall stared at the human female standing over the broken drone. She was small. She was soft. She had no claws, no armor, no natural weapons of any kind. And she had just destroyed a combat machine in less than 2 seconds. Using lecture notes. Stood frozen at his podium. His lecture tablet was gone. His ceiling cable hung loose, swinging gently. His drone lay in pieces at his feet. His compound eyes moved from the wreckage to the human to the wreckage again, as if his brain could not process what it was seeing. His mandibles opened, closed, opened again. No sound came out. Set down the broken tablet half. She flexed her cut hand once, then turned and walked back toward her seat. Her footsteps were the only sound in the entire hall. Was staring at her with his mouth open, had both hands pressed over her lips, her eyes wide. The other human cadets looked like they had witnessed a miracle. Or maybe a nightmare, it was hard to tell which. Sat down in her seat. She folded her hands in her lap. Blood still dripped from her cut, but she ignored it. Whispered, "What did you just do?" She did not answer, she was watching. The instructor had finally recovered enough to move. He stepped down from the platform and approached the destroyed drone. He looked at it for a long moment. Then he looked at the cable, then at the broken tablet. His mandibles began to click, faster and faster. The sound filled the silent room like angry insects. "You," he said. His voice was no longer smooth and mocking. It was rough, harsh. "You have destroyed Academy property, my personal lecture materials, training equipment worth more than your entire planet's military budget." Met his gaze without blinking. "You said use what's around me." That was not the intent of the exercise. The intent was to teach improvisation. His voice remained calm, level, like she was discussing the weather. "You also said a superior warrior does not rely on manufactured weapons. She gestured at the broken drone. I didn't. His entire body went rigid. The plates of his armor seemed to darken with anger. His four arms clenched into fists, and for a moment thought he might attack her right there in front of everyone. But he did not. Instead, he took a step back. His compound eyes swept across the room, seeing the faces of the other cadets. They were glowing brighter than usual, their crystal bodies reacting to strong emotion. They were leaning forward, their small eyes fixed on with something that looked like interest. They were whispering to each other in their quick, clicking language. None of them were looking at anymore. They were all looking at the human. This demonstration is over, said. His voice had returned to its cold, controlled tone, but something beneath it had changed. Class dismissed. Return tomorrow for regular instruction. He turned and walked out of the hall without looking back. His footsteps echoed loudly in the silence, clicking against the floor with each step. The doors closed behind him. For a moment, no one moved. Then slowly, the hall began to fill with sound. Aliens talking, whispering, making whatever sounds their species used to express shock and disbelief. Grabbed his arm. We need to go now, before someone decides to report you. Report me for what? Asked. I followed his instructions. You humiliated him, said. She was already pulling out her medical kit to treat's hand. In front of everyone. That's worse than breaking his drone. Looked at the center of the room, where the destroyed machine still lay smoking on the mat. She thought about the lesson had tried to teach. Observation, adaptation, execution. She had observed, she had adapted, she had executed. Maybe he was right about one thing. Maybe everything really was a weapon. You just had to know how to use it. The news spread through the station like fire through dry grass. Within an hour, every cadet in the Galactic Military Academy knew about the human female who had destroyed a combat drone with a broken tablet. Within 2 hours, the instructors knew. Within 3 hours, the Academy administration was holding an emergency meeting. Sat in a small waiting room outside the administrative wing, and sat on either side of her, their faces tight with worry. Commander stood near the door, his arms crossed, his expression impossible to read. You should have told me, he said quietly, given me some warning. There was no time for warning, replied. He gave me 30 seconds. I used less than 2. That's not what I mean. Moved closer, lowering his voice. If you knew you were going to do something like that, I could have prepared, managed the situation. Now the entire academy is in an uproar, and I'm trying to explain to 12 different species why one of my cadets attacked an instructor's equipment. I didn't attack anything. I completed the exercise. That's exactly the problem. Rubbed his face with one hand. You completed it too well. The door to the administrative chamber opened. An official stepped out, her crystal body shifting colors from blue to purple. The human delegation is requested inside. Stood, grabbed her wrist. Let me come with you, he said. You shouldn't face this alone. You can't, Commander said. Only the cadet involved and her commanding officer are permitted. Those are the rules. Reluctantly let go, squeezed uninjured hand once. Whatever happens, whispered, you were amazing. Nodded and followed through the door. The administrative chamber was even larger than the orientation hall. A curved table dominated the center, behind which sat representatives from the 7 founding species of the Galactic Council. Their forms varied wildly, from the towering stone-like elder to the flowing, almost liquid diplomat. And at the end of the table, his compound eyes fixed on with cold hatred, sat Instructor. Cadet of Earth, the chairperson said. Her voice was like wind chimes in a storm. You are here to address the incident that occurred in Combat Training Hall 7C earlier today. Do you understand the charges against you? I do not know the charges, said. I was not told. A murmur passed through the council. The chairperson's colors shifted to a brighter blue. Instructor has filed a formal complaint, property destruction, insubordination, reckless endangerment of fellow cadets. Mandibles clicked with satisfaction. The human female deliberately destroyed Academy equipment worth significant resources. She acted without regard for safety protocols. She must be disciplined and removed from the program. Commander stepped forward. With respect to the Council, I request that the recording of the incident be reviewed before any judgment is made. The elder made a rumbling sound. This is reasonable. Show us what happened. A holographic display activated in the center of the room. The recording began. Watched herself walk to the center of the training hall. She watched give his instructions. She watched him say the words that had sealed his own humiliation. Use what's around you. Everything in this room is a potential weapon to a competent warrior. Then she watched herself move. Even having lived through it, found the recording strange to see. She had not felt fast in that moment. She had felt calm, clear, like everything was moving slowly and she simply had to reach out and touch it. But on the recording, she was a blur, a streak of motion that ended with a drone on the ground and a room full of shocked aliens. 1.7 seconds. The time stamp appeared in the corner of the display. When the recording ended, silence filled the chamber. The council members looked at each other. Several made sounds or gestures that could not interpret. The elder spoke first. The instructor gave clear parameters. Use what is around you. Everything is a weapon. That was meant as a teaching example, said quickly, not a literal instruction to destroy my equipment. Then you should have said so. The elder's voice was like grinding stone. You gave a command, the human obeyed it completely. She acted with intent to humiliate. She acted with intent to survive, Commander interrupted. You put a combat drone against an unarmed cadet. She neutralized the threat using the exact methods you had just finished teaching. If anything, she proved the validity of your own philosophy. His entire body trembled with barely controlled rage. She is a primitive, an inferior being trying to prove herself by tearing down her betters. Enough. The word came from the diplomat. Its form shifted, rippling like water disturbed by a stone. Instructor, your behavior in this chamber does your species no credit. You were outsmarted by a cadet, a young one. Instead of accepting this with grace, you demand punishment for your own failure. Failure's voice rose. I did not fail, You told her the rules, she used them against you. That is failure. This form settled into stillness. In my culture, a teacher whose student surpasses them is cause for celebration. What does the culture teach? Said nothing. His mandibles hung open slightly, as if the words had been stolen from his mouth. The chairperson's colors shifted to a calm green. The council has heard enough. Cadet followed the explicit instructions of her instructor. The exercise parameters were clearly stated. She fulfilled them. She turned to, Commander, your cadet is cleared of all charges. She may return to her training. Then she turned to, Instructor, you may wish to consider clearer parameters in future lessons. This council is adjourned. The holograms faded. The council members began to rise from their seats, but before could turn to leave, the elder moved toward her. He was massive, 3 times her height, with arms thick as tree trunks. He stopped directly in front of her, looking down with small eyes that burned like coals. Human, he rumbled. Looked up at him without fear. Yes. I have trained warriors for 200 years. I have seen strength and speed and power beyond what most beings can imagine. He paused. I have never seen anyone destroy a Class 2 drone in under 2 seconds. He extended one enormous hand, palm up, a gesture of respect and culture she had learned during the shuttle ride. I would like to train with you sometime, to learn what you see when you look at a room. Placed her small hand on his palm. I would be honored. The nodded once, then turned and walked away. Other council members watched the exchange with expressions of surprise. Commander appeared at side. His face was carefully neutral, but his eyes held something new, something that looked like pride. "Come on," he said quietly. "Your friends are waiting, and I suspect you've just changed a few minds about what humans are capable of." They walked out of the chamber together. Behind them remained at the table, alone, staring at the space where the holographic recording had played. 1.7 seconds. He would remember that number for the rest of his life. 6 months passed like water flowing downhill, quick and unstoppable. Stood at the observation deck of orbital station Theta 7, watching a nebula burn in the distance. The colors were beautiful, purple and gold and deep red, swirling together like paint on a cosmic canvas. Back on Earth, she had never imagined that such things existed. Now she saw them every day. The door behind her opened. Footsteps approached, familiar ones. "Found you," said, coming to stand beside her. "You always come here when you need to think." "It's quiet," said, "and the view helps." Nodded. He looked different now than he had 6 months ago. Stronger, more confident. All the human cadets had changed. They walked taller through the academy halls. They no longer sat in corners like animals seeking shelter. "I heard the news," said, "about." Turned from the window. "What news?" He requested a transfer, going to some outpost on the outer rim, teaching basic combat to new recruits. "A demotion." "Technically, no. The position has the same rank," smiled slightly. "But everyone knows it's a step down. He's running away." Looked back at the nebula. She thought about the instructor who had mocked humans, who had called their wars playground scuffles and their weapons toys. She thought about the hatred in his compound eyes when she had walked out of that administrative chamber, cleared of all charges. "I didn't want to destroy him," she said quietly. "I just wanted to survive the exercise." "I know," moved closer. "But that's the thing, isn't it? You did what you had to do. He couldn't handle being beaten at his own game. He's telling everyone he wanted a more challenging assignment, that the academy was too soft for his skills. And everyone believes him." "No one believes him," almost smiled. "But they let him say it. It's kinder that way." They stood in silence for a while, watching the colors shift in the distant nebula. Ships passed by the station's windows, coming and going from 100 different worlds. "Do you remember what you were thinking?" asked, "in that moment when you decided to move?" Considered the question. She had been asked this many times over the past 6 months, by instructors who wanted to understand her methods, by cadets who wanted to learn from her, by reporters from various species who wanted to write stories about the human female who had shocked the galaxy. She always gave the same answer. "I wasn't thinking, I was seeing." What's the difference? Thinking is slow, seeing is fast. When you think, you have to turn what you see into words, then decide what the words mean, then choose what to do. When you see, you skip all of that. You just know. Shook his head. "I've been trying to learn that, can't seem to get it." "You're an engineer, you think in steps. 1, 2, 3, done." Turned to face him. "That's not worse, it's just different. You build things that last. I break things that threaten." "Quite a team." "Yes, we are." The door opened again. Commander walked in, his uniform crisp, his face carrying the weight of 6 months of diplomatic work. "I thought I'd find you here." She straightened slightly. "Commander." At ease. He moved to the window, standing on her other side. For a moment, all three humans looked out at the stars together. "You know what you've done," said. It was not a question. "I've completed my training. Top of my class in improvised combat, tactical observation, and environmental adaptation." "That's not what I mean." His voice was quiet, serious. "You've changed things, the way aliens see humans, the way they think about us." Waited. "Before that day in the training hall, they thought we were primitives, newcomers who got lucky with technology. They looked at our history and saw chaos, violence, self-destruction. paused. They weren't entirely wrong. We have a difficult past, admitted. We have a bloody past, but that past also taught us something other species don't understand. He turned to face her. We don't fight fair, we never have, we can't afford to. Thought about human history. The wars fought with sticks and stones. The battles won through trickery and ambush. The empires that fell not to stronger armies but to smarter ones. Humans had never been the biggest, never been the fastest, never been the strongest, but they had survived, they had grown, they had reached the stars. They have natural weapons, continued. They have incredible strength. They have speed that we can't match. Every species in this galaxy evolved with some advantage. And humans. Humans evolved to use whatever was around them. Rocks, sticks, fire, ideas. Looked out at the nebula. Every other species sees the environment as a place where they exist. Humans see it as an extension of themselves, a toolbox waiting to be opened. Remembered her grandmother's words. The world is full of weapons. You just need eyes to see them. That day, said, you didn't just pass test. You taught the whole academy a lesson about humanity. You showed them what we really are. What are we? His answer was quiet but certain. We're adapters. We take what's given to us and turn it into something more. A broken tablet becomes a blade. A loose cable becomes a trap. A dismissive insult becomes motivation. He turned to face her fully. The galaxy is just beginning to understand what that means. What happens when humans are pushed? What we become when someone underestimates us? His eyes held something deep, something old. They should be grateful we're on their side. Looked out at the stars. Millions of them, billions. Each one a sun with worlds spinning around it. Each world with its own life, its own history, its own weapons. Humans had none of the natural advantages those species possessed. No claws, no armor, no venom, no wings. So they learned to improvise. They learned to look at any room, any situation, any challenge, and find the weapons hiding in plain sight. They learned to turn weakness into strength, disadvantage into opportunity, broken tablets into victory. The elder still trains with me, said. Once a week. He's learning to see rooms the way I do. How's that going? Slowly, he's very strong. He's never had to look for weapons before. He always was the weapon. Nodded, and now? Now he's starting to understand. It's not about being the weapon. It's about being the one who sees all the weapons. Who had been listening quietly finally spoke. What happens next? For humans, I mean, for all of us. Considered the question. She thought about the other cadets back on Earth, training for their chance to join the academy. She thought about the human colonies spreading across a dozen worlds. She thought about all the species who would look at humans now with new eyes. Next, she said, we keep showing them who we are. Every challenge they give us, every test they design, every trap they set. We take what's around us and we use it. She looked at her reflection in the window. A small human female with no claws, no armor, no natural weapons at all. Behind her, the nebula burned. Above her, the stars waited. And in her eyes, the galaxy was full of weapons. She just had to reach out and take them.